Okay, so 2 weeks ago I made a video with all of the predicted lineups for Euro 2024, but obviously that video is now about 13-14 days old, and that was made before all of the confirmed squads were out, before we got some more injury news, and before all the friendlies were played. So I thought today I would make an updated version, and once again we're just going to do the same thing and go through all of the predicted lineups. So we're starting off with Germany here. This time we've got a little bit of a different graphic. We've got the prices on the back of the kits, which should make things a little bit easier. But the Germany squad basically for the first game is already confirmed. It was news reports confirming the team, saying that had already been decided for Friday's match, and this is the team that we're going for. Nothing different from what we were actually expecting. The only real difference was possibly seeing Sani coming in for maybe Musiala or Wirtz, but as I said, it has now been confirmed that Wirtz and Musiala are going to be the starting players. So nothing major, no major differences for the Germany team. This is what we are looking at for match day one. The Scotland team, however, is looking a little bit different. We do have a couple of changes in here due to injuries. Now, you can see the injuries on the right-hand side of the graphic that will keep consistent throughout, and it's really just for the injuries that have happened since the preliminary squads were announced. So just kind of any training injuries or game injuries that happened in the friendlies. So Lyndon Dykes was injured in training and he's been ruled out for the tournament. The same with Ben Doak. So Dykes, who obviously would have been the starting striker, is now going to be missing out, which leaves the position for either Lawrence Shankland or Shea Adams. Now, I've got Shankland in there. Originally I would have said it would have been Shea Adams, but Shankland played in both of the friendlies, or started in both of the friendlies as well, and I think he could be preferred. I think he's had a really good season and probably deserves to be starting, but I do think we are going to see a lot of chopping and changing. Like Adams could start one, Shankland could start one, and they're definitely going to substitute for each other as well. But I do think Shankland for match day one will be the starter in there. Only other difference in there, I do think Ralston will play at right back. Obviously McCrory started in one of the friendlies as well, so that could change about. And then the only other one would be Ryan Christie coming in potentially for Billy Gilmore. I suppose it depends on what formation we want to go with. Two midfielders would be McGregor and McTominay, with McGinn out wide rather than behind the striker, and then Christie would be on the other side. So that's the Scotland team. I think that's the way that we're going to line up for Friday night. Obviously this could change for match day 2 and 3, but we are really just focusing on the match day 1 lineups. So for Hungary, I've done a little bit of extra digging and I asked a news outlet on Twitter, Hungarian Football Extra, to kind of basically say who he thinks is going to start in goals, who he thinks is going to be in the starting 11 as well. So he does think that Galassi is going to be starting in goals, but it could end up with a big surprise and it could possibly be Deboo's, but Galassi started in both the friendlies as well. The manager announced that he'd already picked who was going to be in goals the other day, so I do think Galassi is going to be that guy who starts, which does ruin the 4 million Deboo's dream, but that is unfortunately the way it's going to be. This is the exact team that he gave me in terms of who he thinks would be the starting 11. There is obviously Styles, who I believe plays for Sunderland, suffered a bit of an injury, is expecting to be back for hopefully the first game, but as I said, I've took the squad straight from Hungarian Football Extra's prediction, and he has Schaefer starting instead. He's also said that there's definitely going to be rotation at right wing back, so Nego could possibly come back out, and there's definitely going to be rotation in the defence at centre back and midfield as well. So I'd imagine the midfield would be someone like Styles coming back in, and then obviously some defensive changes as well, with the likes of maybe Fiola, Bola of course as well coming in defence. And he also said wouldn't be surprised if Martin Adams started the match up front as well. But match day 1 team looks like Varga's going to have the spot. It just depends. It's kind of something to keep in mind if you wanted to go for Hungarian players for match day 1 and maybe you're on a wildcard 5 strategy. Just obviously you need to pick the more minutes secure players for both match day 1 and match day 2. Switzerland is up next, and again a couple of injuries to this squad which has kind of ruled a couple of players out, but they still could recover in time to come back for match day 1 or potentially match day 2 as well. So we've got this as our starting 11. I've got Fabian Schär missing out. He played 90 minutes in the first friendly and then didn't play at all in the second friendly, and he's probably someone that obviously will get a game, I'd imagine, at some point in the group stage. I just think for match day 1 it doesn't look like it's going to be likely. He didn't really play too many matches in the qualifiers, so I do think Rodriguez is probably going to play over him. We've got the 5 back of Widmer and Ndoye. Ndoye is actually listed as a 5.5 million forward, so if you were interested in that, I probably would just be avoiding that. But in terms of the injuries, you can see Zuber there picked up an injury in the friendly, and I read an article on it before saying that the injury it wasn't a minor injury, but it wasn't a proper major injury anyway, and Switzerland coaches and medical staff are hoping that he is going to be able to play at the Euros. So the fact that you're hoping he is going to play at least one game, I would rule him out of match day 1, so I probably would have had him starting in there, but due to that news I think he will be out. So I've got Vargas and I've got Shaqiri, and then I've got Amdouni starting up front. Now again, Mbolo, someone who has picked up an injury. Amdouni got a lot of minutes in the friendlies, which is why I've got him starting, but I believe if Mbolo will be fit, he probably will be the starting striker. Zakaria as well, someone who could change up the formation a little bit. Obviously Switzerland could potentially go with a 4 back, which would shift all of the defenders to one position to the left, and I think it would be Ndoye who comes out, and possibly puts 3 in midfield with Zakaria in there as well. There's also a comment from the Switzerland manager as well that's saying that Shaqiri won't be able to play all of the matches. I think his fitness or his age is really just going to play a big part on what he can do, but he's not going to be able to play all 3 matches, a match every 4 days, and they're not even sure if he can play 90 minutes in a lot of matches. So obviously he played 90 minutes in the friendlies, but that's obviously not as much of a competitive tournament. So if you're considering Shaqiri, you've got to consider that he is definitely going to be a minute's risk and will likely be subbed off a lot of the time. Into Group B now, and the Spain squad again is one that I'm pretty confident on. I think this one basically stays the same, barring maybe 1 or 2 players. The left back position is definitely a big 50-50 on whether it's going to be Grimaldo starting or Cucurella starting. Both of them played in each match of the friendlies. Grimaldo started one, came off at half time for Cucurella, and then the second match Cucurella started and Grimaldo came on at half time for him. So nothing given away at all in the friendlies match. I'm going to go with Grimaldo. I just think he's the better player than Cucurella, which is why I do think he gets in there. In terms of the rest of the team, I think it's pretty solid. The only other option I think would maybe be Dani Olmo coming into the starting 11. Has kind of had a bit of an injury recently, which is why he's not played in the friendlies, but he has been declared fit for match day 1, so he could potentially come in for Fabian Ruiz at centre mid, or he could play at left wing for Nico Williams, so that's just one to look out for as well. Next we have Italy, and this is definitely one of the harder ones to try and predict, but based on what I've kind of been researching and looking at predicted lineups in Italian football news, this is what I've come up with. So it looks like it's going to be the 5 at the back for Italy. They seem to be really solid defensively with that. I don't believe they've lost a game this year playing with the 5 at the back formation. I think DiMarco and Di Lorenzo are definitely going to be playing as the wing backs. I really do think that is going to be locked in. The defence is where it gets a little bit more confusing. Bastoni 100% will be starting. Then the other 2 centre-backs I think is where it starts to get a little bit iffy. I think Buongiorno is probably more likely to play than a lot of the other centre-backs. And then the right centre-back really looks like it's going to be between Cambiasso and Darmian. I think that could just be a big 50-50 with that. Again, probably a game each the way this is looking, but got Cambiasso in there for now. Midfield, Jorginho again 100% going to be starting. And I've got Fagioli beside him because I was reading an Italian news outlet, I believe it was Italian Football News it was called, and they said that they had the predicted lineup and said that Barella holding an injury and is probably going to be rested for the Albania game just so that he can play 100% and against Croatia and Spain in match day 2 and 3. So get Fagioli in there the now. again, like I said, obviously Albania is considered more of an easier game, which is why I'd imagine they don't think Barella would be risked in that game. Then we've got Chiesa, we've got Pellegrini. Pellegrini is probably one that could potentially be rotated. They've got Raspadori who can play that position, and Fratesi as well, who look really good. So that seems like it could be rotated. But I've got Pellegrini starting, as a lot of the comments said in the last match that Pellegrini would 100% start. So that's why we've got him in there. And then we've got Scamacca up top, who, again, been playing in the friendlies and had a really good season as well. I think he will be favoured over Raspadori up front. Next up we have Croatia, and once again I messaged a Croatian news account on Twitter, and that was Croatian Football, that one was called, and he came back saying that basically the Croatian team that played against Portugal in their last friendly is going to be the team that plays in the Euros. So he said the only change that could possibly happen is Erlich coming in for Pongracic in centre back, but I think Pongracic is set to start, especially after doing a very good job against Portugal. So if you're looking for a 4 million Croatian defender in match day 1, I think Pongracic looks like he will start. But I think obviously like long term, match day 2 and 3, you probably will see Erlich coming in at some point. He also said potentially seeing Perisic coming in for Kramaric at left wing, but I don't think Perisic is 100% yet fair to start. So again, really nice team for Croatia, and it looks pretty easy to predict in that sense. So potentially seeing Erlich in there at centre back, and a very small chance of seeing Perisic start at left wing. For the Albanian team, it looks again like a pretty straightforward team. I think this basically looks like at least the 10 outfield players looks like it's 100% going to be the lineup. The only FA position is going to be the goalkeeper, whether that's going to be Berisha or it's going to be Strakosha. Now, they both played 90 minutes in each of the friendlies, so it's nothing really given away there. I'm going for Berisha over Strakosha because Berisha was the one tipped to start before the friendlies match. So my guess is, like, obviously now that Strakosha has played 90 minutes, a lot of people are starting to maybe switch, but it seems like it's a 50-50 based on the friendlies, and I had Berisha starting previous to the friendlies, so I'm going to stick with him. Hope he starts on in match day 1, and then obviously these are going to be my final predicted lineups. So later on, when all the games are finished, I'll put a big list on Twitter and see how many I got right. So I'm really trying to get the exact lineups for this. And again, like I said, I've done a lot of research into all the different teams. So like I said, this 11, this 10 even for the outfield players looks fairly nailed on. The only one that could potentially change is Seferi. He could maybe be, I want to say Mucci, it could be Musi. But that's really the only change that could happen in there. And then it does seem to be like I would say a 60-40 in the goalkeeper position, whether that's going to be Berisha or Strakosha. So heading into Group C, we've got England up next, and really this team looks fairly nailed on. The only position would maybe be that other centre mid position, whether that's going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kilby Mainu, Conor Gallagher, but a lot of reports recently have come out the last couple of days saying that Trent is going to be starting for England. Whether that's going to be at right back for Walker or centre mid, there's no real confirmation on it, but I personally don't see Walker getting dropped. So I do think Trent is going to be playing at centre mid, and it's a 5.5 million defender if you were interested in going there. Again, a little bit cheaper than the likes of Cancelo, obviously playing in midfield as well, and you'd imagine he'd be taking free kicks and corners and stuff as well, so it could be a really good option if you want to go there. The only other ones, Maguire obviously picking up an injury. I do think Mark Gahey is 100% going to be starting in his position. I don't think Dunk or Konza are really going to be challenging for that. And then obviously Luke Shaw as well has obviously been struggling with a bit of an injury over the last couple of months. I do think Trippier gets the left back position in match day 1. Shaw will probably come in and take over at some point. I personally just don't think he is going to be ready in time for match day 1, so I'm going for Trippier in that position there. Next we have Denmark, and the only positions here I think that could potentially change is going to be the wing backs and then one of the centre backs. Vestergaard originally had Kjaer starting in there, Simon Kjaer in the middle defence, but Vestergaard's played in both the friendlies, started in both the friendlies, so I can see him potentially starting in match day 1. Again, that could always change with Kjaer. And then the other one is going to be the wing backs. Now Melee I think is going to be nailed on to start, so the only one that we really need to be wary of is whether it's going to be Ba or if it's going to be Christensen. Now looking at the friendlies minutes, Ba started in both of the matches at right wing back and came off at 60 minutes in both matches. Melee started in one of the matches, and then in the second match he came on the 60th minute, and then Christensen started one of the matches and came on in the 60th minute. So they're basically all playing the exact amount of minutes for the wing back. So again, bit of a toss up. I think Melee is going to be nailed to start, so I do think it's going to be between Ba and Christensen. I'm going for Ba for now because Melee's preferred position is going to be the left wing back. So is Christensen. Ba is primarily a right wing back, so I think that's the way things are going to go. And obviously Ba started in both the friendlies, Christensen didn't, so that's why I'm going for that for Denmark. The rest of the team fairly nailed on. Midfield looks solid, and the attack looks very, very likely to be those guys as well. So Denmark team again, really just looking at the wing backs. For Serbia, once again, I've got a full team from one of the news outlets. Now this one is Serbian Football, and this is basically the team he gave me. So another team that's got Mitrovic not in the squad despite being their top goal scorer in the qualifiers with 5 goals. But that's now Serbian Football who I asked for a lineup saying Mitrovic won't start. Then I seen another one, it was maybe Serbian Football News as well, also had this exact team saying that Mitrovic isn't going to start. So I'm not really sure what the deal is with that. Supposedly just preferring Vlahovic by the looks of things, but rest of the team looks pretty nailed on. I thought Lukic would have maybe been in with a shout in midfield, maybe over Ilic, but as I said, I'm not going to go against the people who are experts on the Serbian team, so that's the 11 that we're going for. Next up is Slovenia, and again, this was a pretty basic team, pretty easy team to predict. This is the exact team that started in their previous friendly and their last friendly before Euro 2024, which just kind of boosts the chances of it happening. I think we've only had one change in here with the previous lineup from 2 weeks ago, and that's one of the centre backs. I've got Bracalo in there over I can't remember who the previous one is, but that was basically a 50-50 between those two anyway. I think the other guy played in 6 of the 10 qualifying matches, and Bracalo played in 4 of the 10 qualifying matches, but we're going for Bracalo the now because based on the friendlies it looks like he's going to start. So as I said, pretty easy to predict team for Slovenia. Heading into Group D, we're starting off with France, and again, this is a pretty difficult team to try and predict. There's 3 or 4 players that could potentially be changed here. I think the defence is basically locked in. Maignan obviously recovered fairly quickly from his dislocated finger, so he's back in the squad. The defence, I think, is going to be starting that way for match day 1 at least, and then the DMs are kind of where it looks a bit iffy. I think Tchouaméni, I believe, has been ruled out of match day 1, so he isn't going to be there for match day 1, which is why I've got Kante in there. I think he is more of the kind of Tchouaméni replacement as a DM. And then I do think Rabiot was on the bench for the last friendly. He was kind of out with a bit of an injury as well, so he could potentially come in for Camavinga. I don't know, we can really, it feels like a bit of a 50-50 with that one. And then the attack, Dembele will start, Griezmann will start, Mbappe will start. Whether he starts at striker or left wing, I'm not really too sure. Thuram started in both of the friendlies for France at left wing, which is why I've got him in there. But that could potentially be Giroud playing as the striker and then Mbappe coming down to the left wing. As far as I know though, a lot of the French media outlets are reporting that Mbappe is going to be the main focus of the entire French team, which makes me think he could potentially play at striker rather than out on the wings. I think he just can be more involved if he plays as a striker there. So I've got Thuram starting at left wing. As I said, could easily end up being Giroud or even Kolo Muani, who starts there instead. So next up we have the team that's probably causing the most problems in terms of the predicted lineup. I think a lot of us really want to have 2-3 Netherlands players in match day 1, and if these guys are going to be starting, then it could really make a big difference to the teams. I'm not going to have Frimpong in here starting. I do think Xavi Simons is going to be the starter at right wing. Obviously Frimpong will 100% be coming on, and he probably will start one match, maybe even two, as the tournament goes on, but I think for match day one it's going to be Xavi Simons, with Frimpong coming off the bench. Obviously a couple of injuries happening to the Netherlands squad as well. De Jong was ruled out last night for the tournament, and Koopmeiners also picked up an injury in training last night, and he's also been ruled out for the tournament as well. So there's a lack of centre mids for the Netherlands team, which has meant that Ian Maatsen has got a call up again, which we could potentially see Netherlands switching to a 5-back. I think with the friendlies being a 4-3-3 in both games, it's going to be unlikely. Obviously Maatsen hasn't played a game for Holland yet either, so I don't think he just slots straight into the starting lineup for the first match day, and he's not played a friendly either. So I do think the 4-3-3 is the way that it's going to go, and this is the exact team that played in the friendly last night as well. And as much as I'd like to see Frimpong start and be confirmed that he's going to be starting, I just don't think it's going to be likely for match day one at least. I do think Simons is going to take that spot, so that's what I think it's going to be for the Netherlands team. It does seem to be the same case for a lot of Netherlands predicted lineups as well. This is the way it's going to be after the injuries, and then fingers crossed that we do get confirmation if it's going to be Simons or Frimpong at right wing. Looking at Austria, it looks like again another team that has 8-9 nailed on players, and then maybe 2 or 3 that are a bit harder to predict. I think the midfield and the attack is basically going to be nailed on. Leimer, as I said in the last video, has been playing as the right winger, but with the injury to Schlager in DM, I did say he would probably come back and play DM, which he has done in the friendlies. Sabitzer obviously hasn't played in any of the friendlies, and I don't think he was in the squad for any of them either. There was some reports yesterday saying that he has been struggling mentally since the Champions League final, but not to worry about him for the tournament, so we are still going to have him starting. I do think he'll start at centre attacking mid. Schmid plays in both of the friendly matches, the same with Baumgartner, and I do think Gregoritsch is going to be the starting striker. The issue with the Austrian team is going to be the defence. I think the right centre back with like a couple of different options there. You've got I think it's Lionheart and Daniliuk is the 2 centre backs that could potentially play. Going for Lionheart, and then the goalkeeper as well is another bit of a iffy situation, whether that's going to be Pence or I forgot the guy's name again. I think it's Lender, something like that. Both of them again playing a friendly each, so both 4 million. Have to really wait and see what happens with that. I do think Pence is going to be the starting goalkeeper though, because the other guy, Lentner, really wasn't in consideration of any predicted lineups up until he started one of the friendlies, so I'm sticking with Pence. I think he is going to be the one in goals. Next up we have an injury struck in Poland, who basically have only, well at the minute, no fit first team strikers. The rest of the team looks like nailed on, as nailed on as you can get. That defence will play, that midfield as far as I know will play, and the strikers is really where they're going to be struggling. Milik was ruled out of the tournament with an injury, and then last night after Swiderski scored an early goal, sprained his ankle during the celebrations and had to come off. 10 minutes later Lewandowski gets injured, also had to come off. So the news that's came out today is that Swiderski is only, well, as I said, only sprained his ankle and he'll be back in training in about 3 days, so I still have him starting. And then Lewandowski has torn a muscle in his thigh, and personally I don't see him making the group stage. Maybe if Poland make it to the round of 16 quarter final he could potentially make it, but I think it's going to be a big ask for Lewandowski to do anything at all at this tournament. So I've got Piatek coming in. I think that there's another striker they've got as well. I think it's Urbanski. He's a 5.5 million midfielder as far as I know, so he could potentially play there. And if you've maybe on a match day 2 wild card wanted to go for someone else, he could potentially be that guy. But unfortunately I think with the striker positions in this Poland team, you're really going to be wanting to go for the defences playing against them. So for example, the Netherlands team that we were just talking about playing against Poland in match day 1 haven't conceded a goal in the friendlies either. I think it could be a really good option to maybe double or even triple up on the Netherlands defence. Belgium team is up next, and again, a couple of injuries ruling a few players out for match day 1. So the match day 1 team for Belgium is probably going to look extremely different to the match day 2 team, but this is how it should look for match day 1. Castillo's confirmed as the number 1 goalkeeper. Castagne is nailed as you can get at right back because Munier picked up an injury and he is again also missing the tournament. 2 centre backs, Wout Faes and Witsel. Again, this will probably be Vertonghen in match day 2 when he comes in. Thiat as well out with an injury, so they don't really have a huge option of centre backs. Potentially Debast could play as well, but I don't see any reason why Faes and Witsel won't play at centre back. Left back, De Kuyper, just added in the game at 4.5 million. Supposedly really good. I personally don't know that much about him, but a lot of the Belgians seem to be really excited to see him play. The midfield, Onana locked in, De Bruyne locked in. Mangala seems to be the one that could potentially change. Again, looks like he will play in match day 1, but in match day 2 you could see Tielemans coming back from his injury and playing, and they're taking his spot. Then again, the front three, Doku, Lukaku, Trossard, looks locked in as you can get. Trossard in good form for Belgium. Doku obviously got a lot of quality, and then they've also got the bench option of Carrasco, Openda, Luka Bacchio as well, a couple other options, Bakayoko, but as far as I know from what I've read from Belgium fans on Twitter, this is 100% going to be the team for match day 1. Next up we have Ukraine, and again a team that looks fairly nailed on and fairly easy to predict. I believe they're actually playing right now as this video is going out. I've seen the predicted lineups before starting recording, and it's basically the exact team that I've got here. Lunin starting in goals, the exact defence. They have Shaparenko playing instead of Zinchenko, and then Yaramchuk playing up front instead of Dovbyk. Other than that, the exact same team. Dovbyk's completing a move to Atletico Madrid as far as I know, which is why he's not in the squad tonight, but I'm pretty sure he will be starting in the Euros after such a good season. Zinchenko, I think the same as well. With Lunin, I do think you're looking at the friendlies and there's not too much to be given away. Trubin played 90 minutes in the first one, Bushan played 90 minutes in the second one, and I imagine Lunin will play 90 minutes in this one, so you kind of just have to go off who the best goalkeeper is. I do think it's Lunin after his brilliant season, and he also played again the 2 qualifying matches, the 2 playoff matches to get into the Euros, so I do think he will be the goalkeeper, and again fairly easy squad to predict I believe for Ukraine. Romania looks like another locked-in team. The only potential switch around is going to be the goalkeeper again. Nita played in the first friendly for Romania and Moldovan played in the second friendly. Again, I think this is a little bit less of a decision to make than the other ones. I do think Moldovan still has that number 1 spot by a fairly decent margin, so I'm going to have him to play. Defence locked in as you can get, midfield locked in as you can get. The only potential change I think could be that left wing spot. Mihaela or Coleman could really be the only difference, then potentially Hadji coming in as well, but the rest of the team I think looks pretty nailed on. The Dennis Mann, one of Romania's best players, Stiancu the same, and then Dragus up front. Seems to be the only striker that Romanian fans like. Alobak and Puskas just don't seem to be preferred whatsoever, so I've got Dragus starting up front, rest of the team looks nailed. And then finishing off the penultimate group is Slovakia, and again, really easy squad to predict. I believe it's the exact same lineup that I had 2 weeks ago to what it is now, except for the striker. Went for Bozniak instead because Polyevka only got 30 minutes in the first friendly and he wasn't in the squad whatsoever for the second one. So I'm going for Bozniak. He also scored in one of the friendlies as well, so I think he plays instead. But again, really easy team to predict. It was the exact same team that played in their last friendly as well, so I do think this is the team they go for with the Euros. And the final group we are looking at starts off with Portugal, and again we're looking at the exact same team that I had 2 weeks ago. I don't think it's really going to change. Going for Inácio in as the centre back because I think the friendlies do slightly seem to nudge me towards Inácio over Antonio Silva and Pepe. He played 45 minutes in the first friendly and then he played the full 90 minutes in the second friendly, so leaning towards Inácio as the defender. I do think the rest of the defence should be locked locked in. Midfield as well, I do think looks pretty locked in. I think Vitinha's season has earned him a spot in midfield. I do think João Felix is probably just going to miss out, but we could potentially see Bernardo Silva dropping into midfield to replace Vitinha, and then João Felix going out wide. I've got Ronaldo starting. I do think he makes the starting 11, but Portugal have 3 friendlies in the build-up for the Euros, and he's not been in the squad for the first 2. They are playing again tonight at 7:45 against Ireland, so we can get more information on that one. If he's not in the squad again, then you're probably going to have to look towards someone like Gonçalo Ramos to start. But I think if he's in the squad, if he gets some minutes, it's very likely that he starts again. So with 3 to go, we are now on Turkey, and again, this is probably one of the harder squads to try and predict, but I feel like I've done a pretty decent job here. They've had a big injury crisis in centre-back, with Soyuncu ruled out of the tournament and Kabak ruled out of the tournament as well. So I've got Demiral playing there, and I've got Bardaki. Bardaki is 100% going to be starting. It's the other centre-back that could be a little iffy. We've got Demiral, who could play there, I think Akane, I want to say, or is it Ahan is the other centre back who can also play at right back as well if Shelik was potentially not going to start. The front 3, I think, is where it starts to get a little bit difficult. I think Çalhanoğlu and Yüksek look basically nailed on to start in DM. The front 4 even looks like it could be rotated a little bit. I think Yilmaz obviously can play basically anywhere. He can play as a left back, a right back, a left wing, a striker, a right wing. I've got him at left wing for now. Could potentially be someone like Actor Koglu. He could play there if Yilmaz is going to drop down to the defence. Yildiz, primarily a left winger, but I think based on the striker options that Turkey have, he starts. There was another Turkish striker who played in the last friendly. I want to say it's Kilik Soy that his name is, and he seems to be pretty decent. A lot of Turkey fans seem to favour him, but I don't think he is going to be a starter at the Euros. Probably someone just to come off in the bench. Another one to keep an eye on is going to be Kadioglu, who hasn't started in any of the friendlies, and Mulder, who has played both 90 minutes in both of the friendlies at left back. So I don't know what's happening with Kadioglu, but Turkey fans do still seem to predict that he will be starting. So I think that's a pretty decent attempt at the Turkey squad. As far as I know, there could only really be 1 or 2 changes to that. And with 2 to go, it starts to get a little bit easier. We've got Czechia up next, and again, a team that looks fairly nailed on to start. The only position that could be changed, I think, is going to be that right centre mid position, which would have been Sadalek's, but if you haven't seen the news already, he injured himself falling off his bike, so he is now ruled out of the tournament, and we're now looking for a different centre mid. Now, I think there's a bit of a 50-50 between Hlozek and Barak to play in that position. Barak played in the first match, scored a penalty. He also played in the second match off the bench and also scored a penalty. Hlozek, I think, as well, he's a good player. I think he could potentially make that start. I think he is more of an attacking player than a central midfield player, so potentially Barak could start in there again. Looking at the penalty takers as well, we're talking about Souček being one of the penalty takers. Schick took a penalty last night with Souček on the pitch, so Schick 100% will be the starting penalty taker for Czech Republic. Then Schick came off and they got another penalty, and Barak took that one as well, again with Souček on the pitch. So I think that really puts Souček down the pecking order in terms of penalty takers, but for the starting 11, pretty confident on this one. And then finishing things off, we have the Georgia team, and again, no changes whatsoever from the team from 2 weeks ago. No injuries to the Georgia team, no struggles whatsoever. This is the exact team that played last night, apart from the right centre back, but Georgia fans seem to think that I'm not even going to say it. The right centre back, basically, that's in this team is going to be the only change to last night's friendly squad. So that looks 100% nailed on to be the Georgia team for the Euros. And that is going to end off this video. I think I've managed to do this one a little bit quicker than the other one, which is nice, so you shouldn't have to sit and listen to me for too long. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Make sure again just to let me know down in the comments if there was any changes to the lineups that you would make. Make sure to subscribe if you are new, and once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.